Forgotten legends of the 1960s, where did they all go wrong? Hollywood has a strange way of creating immortality and then quietly taking it back. One moment, a face is everywhere, on billboards, magazine covers, movie screens glowing in packed theaters. The next, that same face becomes a memory, mentioned only in retrospectives, whispered in documentaries like this one. How does that happen? How does Hollywood build legends and then forget them? Tonight, we return to the 1960s, a decade of rebellion, reinvention, and raw cinematic ambition. And we follow three stars who were once seen as the future of film itself. Tuesday Weld, George Lazenby, Ali MacGraw. Three names, three rising icons, and three careers that drifted away from the center of Hollywood history. Tuesday Weld, the fragile star who never wanted the machine. Before Hollywood saw her as a star, Tuesday Weld was already struggling with the weight of expectation. Born in New York, she entered the entertainment world as a child model and actress. But behind the early attention was a difficult childhood and emotional pressure that followed her into adolescence. Hollywood noticed her beauty first, her talent came second, but it didn't take long for both to become undeniable. By the late 1950s and early 1960s, she was being positioned as one of the most promising young actresses in the industry. She had the rare ability to project vulnerability and intensity at the same time. Her breakthrough performances in films like Play It As It Lays and Roastabout showed something deeper than just screen presence. They showed emotional unpredictability that directors found fascinating. Everyone around her believed she would become a lifelong leading star. But Hollywood's system is not built for fragility. Weld often resisted the studio lifestyle. She was selective with roles, sometimes turning down major projects. In an industry that rewards constant visibility, absence becomes a risk. As the 1970s arrived, the momentum slowed. While she continued working, her career never fully followed the trajectory expected of her early promise. Behind the scenes, she was known for valuing privacy and distance from Hollywood's machinery, choices that preserved her personal life but limited her commercial presence. She never fell in the dramatic sense. Instead, she faded slowly, stepping away from the spotlight while the industry moved toward louder, more commercial stars. Today, Tuesday Weld is remembered as a symbol of controlled withdrawal, a talent too sensitive for the machinery that needed constant performance. Willand and lightened, gone Maud. George Lazenby, the man who replaced a legend once. In Hollywood history, few careers are as unusual as George Lazenby's. An Australian model and car salesman with no major acting background, he walked into one of the most iconic roles in cinema history and instantly changed his life. When he was cast as James Bond in On Her Majesty's Secret Service 1969, replacing Sean Connery, the decision shocked the industry. But the film itself earned strong critical respect over time, and Lazenby's performance proved he could carry one of cinema's most demanding roles. For a brief moment, it looked like a new era had begun. A new Bond, a new face, a new legacy. But then came the decision that would define everything. After the film's release, Lazenby chose not to continue in the role. At the time, he believed the Bond franchise would decline in popularity as the 1970s culture shifted. He also reportedly faced intense industry pressure and advice from management that encouraged him to pursue other opportunities. It was a decision that stunned Hollywood, because James Bond was not just a role, it was a lifetime franchise. What followed was not superstardom, but uncertainty. Without Bond, Lazenby struggled to find roles that matched his sudden global recognition. He appeared in various international productions throughout the 1970s and beyond, but none reached the cultural impact of his single Bond film. In many ways, his story became a lesson in timing, how one decision can permanently alter a career's trajectory. Today, George Lazenby is remembered not as a failed actor, but as the man who lived one of cinema's most fascinating what-if stories. Ali MacGraw, the face of a generation that moved too fast. If there was ever a face that defined early 1970s Hollywood romance, it was hers. Ali MacGraw entered the industry later than most rising stars. She worked in fashion and behind the scenes before stepping into acting. Her breakthrough came with Goodbye Columbus 1969, earning her immediate critical attention and a Golden Globe Award. But it was Love Story 1970 that transformed her into a global phenomenon. The film became a cultural event. Audiences were emotionally consumed by it, and MacGraw became one of the most recognizable actresses in the world almost overnight. She received an Academy Award nomination and became the defining romantic heroine of her era. At that moment, she seemed unstoppable. But Hollywood fame moves faster than stability can hold. Behind the success, MacGraw faced intense media attention and personal upheaval. Her high-profile marriage to producer Robert Evans placed her even deeper into Hollywood's spotlight, where personal and professional life often merged into one public narrative. As the 1970s progressed, her film appearances became less frequent. She made selective choices, stepping away from the constant cycle of studio filmmaking. Some of those choices were personal, some were influenced by shifting industry dynamics. Hollywood itself was changing, becoming more fragmented, more commercial, less centered on romantic dramas like the ones that made her famous. Her later roles never matched the seismic impact of Love Story, and gradually, her presence in mainstream cinema diminished. Yet unlike many fading stars, MacGraw never fully disappeared. She transitioned into a quieter life, occasionally returning to screen work, but largely stepping away from Hollywood's constant attention. Today, she is remembered as the face of a film that defined a generation, and as someone who chose distance over constant reinvention. When Hollywood moves on, 3 stories, 3 different outcomes. Tuesday Weld, who walked away from constant visibility in favor of personal control. George Lazenby, who stepped out of a role that could have defined his entire life. Ali MacGraw, who became a global icon and then slowly stepped back from the system that created her. None of them failed in the traditional sense. Instead, they collided with an industry that changes faster than people can adapt. Hollywood in the 1960s was already transforming, old studio systems breaking apart, new genres emerging, audiences shifting expectations overnight. And in that transition, even the brightest stars could lose their place in the sky. Final reflection. Hollywood does not always forget talent. It forgets timing, it forgets context. It forgets the fragile human beings behind the images it projects onto the world. And sometimes, it simply moves forward so quickly that yesterday's legends become today's footnotes. But the truth remains, before they were forgotten, they were unforgettable.